Before we get started, I want to remind everyone that the information in this presentation is not to be or construed as investment advice. The information presented are subject to change without notice, and while we have made every reasonable effort to ensure that the content is reliable and accurate, we have not independently verified the content and are not responsible for errors therein. Please consult a professional advisor before putting a loonie in any of these financial markets. Hi everyone, my name is Richard Diaz and welcome back to the IceCap Canadian Market Wrap. In this week's video, we're going to talk about Canada's exports and imports and highlight some of the risks and opportunities for Canada. But before we get into that, we're going to briefly go over the new China tariffs and what they might mean for Canadians. Just a few days ago, China announced new tariffs on Canadian agriculture and food products, escalating the trade tensions between the two nations. Effective March 20th, China will place a 100% tariff on rapeseed oil, rapeseed meal, and peas, as well as a 25% tariff on certain seafood products and pork. Some of you might be surprised to learn this, but towards the end of summer 2024, the Canadian government put a 100% tariff on Chinese-made electric vehicles. At the same time, in a move that went largely under the radar, Canada put a 25% surtax on steel and aluminum imports. So if the Canadian government is so desperate to lower emissions, why would they follow the Biden administration and slap on a huge tariff onto Chinese electric vehicles? As usual, with these types of policies, the reason is politics. Now, to be clear, there's a strong case that Western countries should reindustrialize. Their security depends on it. But in the realm of EVs, it is difficult to see this as anything but realpolitik. There are a lot of votes up for grabs in the U.S. Midwest and the Golden Horseshoe, where the auto sector is a dominant player, and governments on both sides of the border have made huge and quite dubious bets on the EV battery market. It looks increasingly like these governments wanted to protect their investment and to save face. So why tariff Chinese EVs? Well, it's because they're so darn cheap. Over the last few years, China has become the largest car exporter in the world, outpacing perennial leaders such as Japan, Germany, and Mexico. This dominance is especially stark in the EV market, where the average price of a Chinese EV is half that of its US competitor. And that's for cars with comparable quality and craftsmanship. But I'll let you guys argue about that in the comments. The fact of the matter is that they have left the old players in the dust, and this sea change is having an enormous impact on Europe's industrial base, which is outside the scope of this video. So how is China able to produce quality EVs so cheaply? Well, this is an old story. China's industrial support, or government subsidies, are legendary, and nothing has changed. And that, along with cheap coal-powered energy, they are able to manufacture goods at prices well below their competitors. EVs are just the latest in a long list of examples. So how do China's retaliatory tariffs affect Canada? Well, it's difficult to calculate all the second-order effects, but I would say that on the whole, the effect is likely muted. China is a big export market for Canada, and in some sectors, it is the single largest customer. However, in aggregate, it is far behind the U.S., as it makes up less than 4% of Canadians' goods exports. This chart highlights the major risk that Canada faces. Our exports, namely crude oil, only go to one market. Canada should be working to expand its market. However, there are limitations to this aspiration due to proximity and infrastructure. The reality is that agriculture exports aren't that big relative to Canada's other exports, and tariffs do not mean this number goes to zero. Countries do not only compete on price, but quality, convenience, and a multitude of other factors, even when it comes to commodities. But of course, tariffs make goods more expensive, and it will hurt on the margin. What's more is that Canada's agricultural exports are quite obviously varied. As you can see from the chart, they range from intermediate food products to live animals and wheat and everything in between. The red bars highlight where China has announced the tariffs, and I would argue it is unsurprising that they are on the low end of the scale, likely with the aim of causing maximum political impact rather than real economic pain. The final chart for you today highlights where Canada has an incredible opportunity. In short, to lean on what we do well, and that's the ethical and sustainable extraction of natural resources. Outside China and the US, there are countries desperate for a stable trading partner. The most recent obvious example is when Germany, Greece, Japan, and Poland came begging for our natural gas. All the government needs to do is just get out of their way. All right, that's a wrap on this week's episode, everybody. Please like, subscribe, and follow for more. And as always, we manage money for families all around the world and in Canada, so feel free to get in touch.